So I want us to quickly take a look at CSS text in this video, which is just basically all about text formatting. Because in CSS we can format text whichever way we basically want, all right? And in this one, we're going to basically take a look at something like text color, text alignment, text decoration. We even have something like text transformation, even text spacing and text shadow. All right, so I'm going to try as much as possible to take a look at the ones we can in this video. All right, so I do have my Visual Studio open right here, and I do have this folder right here called CSS text right here, and I have nothing inside of it, as you can see. So here at the right hand side, I do have my browser that we're basically going to be using to view what we're really doing right here. So let's create our first file. I'm going to just call this index.html and get that opened. And the next file I want to create is going to be for the CSS. So if we do style or styles.css, that won't be actually bad. So we do have two files in here. So the first thing I want to do is to just import our HTML boilerplate here. And I'm going to just give this a title. So this is going to be text. Let's call that CSS text that, and we will get down in here. The first thing I want to do, I want to generate something like a div in here. So and basically it's going to have a class, and let's say that the class is actually going to be something like, let's call this text color. All right, because basically I want us to, like, first of all take a look at text color in here. And to do that, I think it's really important to, well, all right, let's just go ahead and just basically call this we're going to give this a class of a text color. Someone just call this text dash color right there, and we can close this out. Then now here, let's close the div right here. All right, so within this particular div that we just created, I would like to add a text in here. And this is just maybe basically I'm going to just give this something like h1 in there. And what we're going to do with this h1 right here is just basically we're going to just call this text color as the h1 in there. And I want to basically save what we got right here. And what I want to do next is let's just basically try to open this up. So if we go to, I want to open this up right here, and then open this up, and that's just what you are really seeing on the browser right here. All right, so let me also even add something like, we want to add a paragraph down here. So paragraph, and then paste this text in here. And if we save the changes, and let's minimize this, and then if we refresh here, you see that we do have okay, I think we haven't actually saved the changes in this page. So let's do save the changes, and then if we refresh, you see that the text kind of comes in. All right, and it has some basic formatting. This is just basically the default formatting right here. But if we want to give us our own format right here, we can go to our CSS and do that. Then before I do it, before we basically forget, let's do our link right here. And what I want to basically do is to link to this file called the CSS right here. So this is actually called the styles.css. Notice that I do not actually change the case sensitivity. It's all purely the file, this particular file name in here that I use. All right, so let's save these changes in this page, and if we open the CSS, I want to add a couple of styles to the CSS right here. And the first thing I want to do is the whole body of the website, because if you take a look in here, you see that we do have a tag called body, and I want to style that, maybe basically give it a background. And let's say that the background I'm going to give to this is going to be, let's just first of all say background, and I want to say this is just basically going to be F4 F4 or whatever you want to give that. So this is just basically a light gray background. So if we save the changes in here, and then we'll refresh here, you're going to see that this background, the background of this page, is going to darken up a little bit. So let's refresh, and you see that it darkens up. If you don't want to use that, let's say you want to use something like purple, you can just type purple right here. Save the changes, and if we refresh, see that the background changes to purple right there. All right, but I'm going to just return to this gray background in here. That's just basically what I want to use. And as far as the body section is actually concerned, that's just the only thing I want to have in there. The next thing I want to work on is basically going to be this, which we have in here, this text color. And that's just basically what we're going to use to experiment with what you want to do. All right, so remember that with text color, we are looking for ways to effect some changes to the text that we do have on our web page. So to start that right here, let's go ahead and paste that class name in here, and we can go ahead and then do a couple of things in here. All right, so if we want to give a background to that, we'll do that, but we're going to just come to that as we move along. But the first thing I want to do, let's first of all give this a border. I want to like basically visualize everything that I'm just basically doing right here. All right, so if I do 1 pixel right here and do solid, and maybe the color of this particular thing is actually going to be something like blue or navy, whatever you want to use. Save that, you're going to see that we do have this blue border around this particular thing. So I want you to pay attention to what you have in here as text. All right, so we do have that on that particular place. All right, so since we are just basically working on text color, and what I want to do first of all is to effect a change to this text right here that we have in here. So if you want to do that, if you take a look at our HTML in here, you're going to notice that we do have a div right here called a text color before we are able to get to this particular H1 that is actually called a text color. So if I want to grab onto the H1 that we have in here, we should move from the div right here, which is actually called a text color, before we can actually get to the H1 right here. Of course, you can basically maybe move to the H1 basically if you want to do that, but what this means is that any place you have something like a H1 within your web page, the whole web page, is just basically going to apply the style to that. But I just want it to like apply the style that I want right now to basically this particular H1 that is inside of this particular div here. So if I want to do that, it means that I can just basically, I'm going to just copy this, basically duplicate that. If I paste that, you're going to notice that I do have this right here, but what I want to basically style is going to be this particular H1 right here. So for that reason, I'm going to just go ahead and then reference that. I'm going to create a space and just do H1 in here, meaning that whatever style that I write in here should just basically affect only the H1, all right? And what I want to do in the H1 section is not just to give it a border, but to just change the color. So if I do color right here, and the color is just basically going to be, let's say we're going to just call this, let's call it navy, and save the changes. Notice that I just use this particular property right here called a color, and I'm giving it a value that is actually called a navy, meaning that if I refresh this page right here, we're going to see that the color of this text is going to change to navy. So navy looks like blue. So if you take a look at that, see that it changes to blue right there. If you want to experiment, if you're not really seeing that really very well, you can just do a red in here, save the changes, and then if we refresh, you see that the text color right there becomes red. All right, so that's just basically what I want to do, but I want to change this back to navy. I think I like navy colors. All right, so I believe that is really coming together. And the next thing I want to work on is the paragraph right here. Notice that the style that we're just basically giving to the header right here isn't affecting the paragraph tag. So if you take a look in here, you see that we do have a paragraph inside of this particular place. All right, so if you want to style that, it's really very simple. You can get down here. I want to paste what I have on the clipboard already, and then create a space in here and just do P, meaning that I'm just referencing to the paragraph that is inside of this particular place. All right, that's just basically what that means. And with that, if I do have other paragraphs on this particular page, it wouldn't actually affect it. Even this particular one that we worked on right here called H1, because we are just specifically specifying that it has to just go into the div called a .text - color right there. So what I want to do with this is going to be just to change the color again. If I do color in here, and you can go ahead and then change the color to whatever you want. So this is just the original thing in here is black, but if you want to change the variants of the black, we can just do that. I'm going to just do hash and just do 111. All right, so if I refresh here, you notice that there is a change. And if you don't really notice that very well, we can change this to a different color that is going to be very visible to us. All right, so if we do that by maybe changing it to red, and then we refresh the page, you see that the color changes to red right there. All right, but I'm going to just take it back to the 111 color, or even 333, whatever color you basically want to use. All right, so and these are just basically hexadecimal colors. So this right here should originally be 6, so we can add 1 2 3 to make it 6, and you see that it still gives the same kind of a color on this particular page. All right, but if you want to like shorten that, since it's just almost the same numbers, you can just take away 3 values and it still give you the same color. So this is just like a shorthand. If you refresh here, see that the color is still there, but this is just basically a different variant of a black right there. All right, so that is it. Everything that we have done up here so far is just all about text color. Right, so I'm just do text color, and what I want to do next right here is going to be about maybe the background. So if you want to change the background of a text, you can actually do that. Let's do text, yeah, text background. Let's make sure I type that correctly. It's going to be background color like that. And if I want to do that, let's experiment with the H1 in here. So if I copy this and I get down here, paste that, and then we can just basically change the background. So I'm going to just do background right here, and let's say that the background is actually going to be, let's say this is going to be light, maybe light gray or something. I think we already even have light gray right there, so let's use light green, and then we'll save the changes and then refreshing here. You see that is a background attached to the color right here. All right, however, what I've just done right here by copying this down is just like repeating myself. So I think it's really very important we can keep this at the same place, so there will be no need of having this right here I can cut that, and then once I get into the where I worked on the H1 in here, I can go ahead and then paste that code in here. So if I save the changes, you see if you refresh, you still have the same thing. And if you don't want the color the way that it is right there, let's say you want to change the color to something like maybe this is gonna be let's use this color right here. So forest green. You save the changes and refresh, you see that it comes in, right? So that is just that. So I want to take it back to light green right there. I think light green is okay on that particular page. We can also do the same thing for the what is it called, the paragraph, if you want to do that. So if I copy this right here, go down to where we have paragraph, and let's say what I want to use right here is no longer this color that I'm really seeing here. Let's say I want to use maybe violet. Save the changes and then we'll refresh. You see that we do have the background right here changed. So that's just basically how to work with the background if you want to change the background of the what is it called, of the text that you do have on your web page. The next thing we want to take a look at right here. So we are done with this right here. So I also would like to maybe add this right here as let me take this away and also take this away. So that means that we dealt with text color and even text background right here. So this will be the first thing we did today, and down here we did this as the second. So we're going to basically do something about the third thing in here, and that's just basically going to be text alignment. So I'm going to just do text alignment. And to do that right here, we do have our H1 right here floated to the left hand side of the page. If it is okay by you, that's fine. But there are some situations where you may want to push this to maybe the center or even at the extreme right hand side of the page. If you want to do that, it's really very simple. So when you get into your H1 section right here, you can just do something called a text align, and that's just the property name. And you can just say center, just to put the text to the center of the web page. If you save the changes and refresh, you're going to see that this text is going to move to the center of the web page. So let's refresh. You see that it moved to the center of the web page, and I think it looks pretty beautiful to me. You can also do the same thing to the paragraph if you want to do that. So if I copy this and put it down here for the paragraph and then save the changes and then refresh, you see that there is an adjustment right here. So the content was able to be moved to the center of the web page. All right, but most of the time I think this one is actually okay. What is it right here? So it's always okay to be aligned to the left or the web page. All right, so I'm going to just basically take this away, but you can experiment with that. Now we are done with the what is it called, center alignment. The default thing that we had before we added this particular center right here was actually called a left. So if I do left in here, save the changes and refresh, you see it comes back to the left hand side, and that's just basically the default. So even if I take this particular line away from here and then save the changes, refresh, you see that it's still going to just stay the same. All right, but it's okay that I kind of assure you that right now. So another one we have is called the right alignment. So we do have left, center, and then that of the right. So if we save the changes in here and refresh, you see that the text was actually moved to the right hand side of the screen right here. So that's just how it is. So let's return this to the center of the web page and then refresh here, and we're going to just basically leave it at the center right there. All right, so I've shown you how to make use of that of the center alignment, right alignment, and finally the left alignment right there, which is just basically the default. All right, so that is it, guys. So I want to give you an assignment right now, and let's put that assignment in the, maybe I'm going to just basically put it somewhere down here, and let's just maybe make that something like H2. And that's just this particular property right here, all right, called the text align last right here. So I want you to just go and take a look at how we can actually work with itself values. All right, so the values that you can actually use this on, and maybe we should just have a paragraph down there or something like even H1 H2 elements that we can just basically put here to experiment with, or you can even experiment with these. So if you use H2, you can just basically experiment with that. So I want to save the changes and just leave it right there. And maybe I think we should have said something like assignment in here. So this will be your assignment, guys. So I'm going to just do paragraph down here and paste that right here. And we can just do this. So at a later time, just know that this is the assignment I want you to just look up and then do some experiment with that. I want to see the values that you are basically going to do, use that on, and what it's going to basically produce for you. So that is it. All right, so that was what next we I think we also talked about something like text decoration before now. So how do I show you this example right here? And maybe let me just once I get down in here, I'm going to just basically, let's work on that of the text decoration right here. And with this text decoration is just most of the time used on something like links, all right? Because by default, if you have a link, they normally have something like an under what is it called? Underline kind of a stuff right there, all right? So let me just do this real quick. And let's make sure that this is just basically an HTML link, and I want to just do home right here, which is just basically going to be just serve as a home button. All right, so if you save the changes and refresh, you see that we do have a text right here that kind of says home. And if you look at that very well, you see that it does have an underline right there. So that's just basically what we basically want to deal with right here. So there are some situations where you may have multiple of these. Let's say you have this home, we could call this something like services. This one can be product. All right, so if you refresh, you see that they all have this underline around them. All right, and there can be some situation where you want to use something like, what is it called, something like a menu bar. I think it will be necessary for just, let me cut this off from here and maybe put it at the very top of this page right here. So let's save the changes and refresh. You see that we do have something like, looks like what is it called, they just basically look like that of the menu bars on your web page. Some menu bars, some people may not like things like an underline under them. All right, so if you want to take away those underlines, the way that you can actually do that is really going to be very simple. So to remove that, for an example right here, if we go to, sorry about this, I'm going to basically save this page, and we can just maybe reference to that on this particular page. So if I reference to the tag called the A tag right here, and we can go ahead and within this particular page right here, what do we want to do? We did talk about text decoration right here. So if we do text underscore decoration, and if I want to remove those underlines, I can just do none right here and refresh here. You see that they do not actually have underline anymore. So that is it. So if you want to bring back the underline, you can just do, instead of what you're having here, you can just do underline. And this is just basically the default. If you want the underline, you don't need to do anything. So if you save changes and then refresh, you see that the underline comes back. However, you can also bring in some type of underline that you want if you don't want this type that is already here right now. And I'm going to experiment with that. So let's say, for instance, you want to have an underline, but then you want to change the color, because if you take a look at the color right here, see that it's just basically blue by default. So if you want to change it, let's say we want to change this to red, you can do this. And if we save the changes and refresh, you see that we do have underline right there. In fact, I think I want to increase the text size right here, and let's do that with font size. And so what I'm going to do is to just set that to 2em right there, so that it will be bold enough for you guys to really see. So if you make that large enough, you see how that is actually looking now, because we added the red in here. So formerly it was just basically blue, and that's just the default. So if you take this away and just do blue right here, and we refresh, it goes back to the blue that it used to be. All right, so now you know that you can just change that to about any color that you basically want. If you don't want blue, if you don't want red, you can just basically change it to anything that you want. Right, and again, I can see the style is just basically single right here. Let's say you want to change that to maybe a double color. What you basically want to do is you are going to have to enter a third parameter right here and just do basically a double and save the changes. So if you refresh, you're going to notice that this blue underline right here is going to become double. So if you refresh, you see that it's now 2. So there are some situations where you may want to do something of that particular nature. Because if you add it to something like under this particular text that we'll have here as H1, I think it's going to basically look beautiful in that place. So if I copy this and we'll go to where we'll have this, and let's save the changes, you see that it looks a lot beautiful, right? So it's completely up to you what you want to do with that. But that's just basically what you can do with that of the text decoration. And there are even a lot more that you can actually do with that, all right? But I'm going to just basically stop at this that I've already shown you. We can even affect how large that is. So if I make this something like 6 pixels by adding the fourth parameter right there, and if you take a look at here, you're going to see that these double lines will increase. See how it increased? So I think it's very necessary. I can also show you that, guys. All right, so I think this video is really taking a lot of time already, So let's quickly rush the next thing I want to do. And the next topic is just basically going to be called a text decoration. Let's put the topic right up there. Here we are going to work on the fourth thing in here. And this is going to be text. What did I call that? I think it's actually called a text transformation. So this is going to be transformation. All right, that will be the fourth thing that we basically want to work with in this video. And to do that, if we get down here, I want to make sure that I effect that on these links that we don't have right here. All right. So to work with that of the text transformation, we are looking for ways to like maybe being able to transform the case sensitivities of these links that we do have in here. For that reason, if I go back here, I want to make sure that everything that I have in there will be just be lowercase letter. So this is going to be home. Put an S here in lowercase letter, of course, and then P in lowercase letter. So if you save the changes and refresh, you see that everything is in lowercase letter. But I want to, within my CSS right here, be able to transform those. Let's say I want all of these to become capital letters. I can actually do that. So how do I do that? I will do text dash. This is going to be transform, and the value is actually going to be uppercase. So this is going to be uppercase. Close that, and when we refresh, you see that all the text that we have in here on the menu bar right here becomes capital letters, right? So we'd also have the other one that is actually called a lowercase letter. So if we want all of them to go back to lowercase letter, we can do that. So let's do lower right here. Case, save the changes, and if we refresh, everything goes back to lowercase letter. And another one is if you want the first, let's say the first letters to become uppercase letter, we can do that with capitalize. I think it's actually called a cap. Let's do capitalized right here. All right, this particular keyword. So if we save and then refresh, you see that home starts with a capital letter, as service started with a capital letter, and that of the product starts with a capital letter or uppercase letter. So I don't know how you really pronounce that in your own country, but that's just how it is, guys. And I think I'm going to just basically stop the video right here. It has taken a long time, and I basically want to stop right here. And I believe you have actually learned something in the video. So we've worked with text, colors, text background, text alignment, and text transformation. So that is a lot. You can go to something like W3 School and then you are going to learn a lot more in that particular place right here. But I'm going to just basically stop the video right here. If you do love the video, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. And even if you don't have anything to say, just say at least thank you in the comment section. And I think I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.